What do you got, Chris? It looks like we got a live symbol.
Yep, there's one person there. Let me get in here. Oh. I gotta get it open so that I can see it. Okay. All right, well, I'll start while I'm doing this. Hey, everybody, we are going live now, 20 laps with Chris and Jerry with the number 16 modified driver, Dave Schoenberger. Hi, Dave.
Hello.
Thanks for joining us.
Sure.
Really quick before we get into the questions, if any of you watched the driver meeting just before this, I forgot to say, we will have heat winning stickers and feature winning stickers soon. I'm making a list. We're getting them made. They will be coming. Anybody that want a heat or a feature will get your sticker. So, you know.
And you'll distribute them as they check in.
Yes, I will distribute as they are checked in.
And Dave Schoenberger, you'll be looking to put a couple of those on your car. You've had a good outing so far in 2020.
Well, we've got one coming for sure, so that's a start.
You've been running the 16 mod, and we were talking a little bit off air. Obviously, a big weekend for you, and you've done a promotion with Taco Bell. Tell us about that, how you picked up, and obviously now you're world famous name Taco Dave.
Maybe we'll go with almost world famous. We, as many people know, we always do, or we've been doing this last couple of seasons, the win a race, win a taco promotion with the wristbands. So we're going to try and do the double header with hopefully some cooperation from the weather this weekend. So we're going to run the fairgrounds Friday night and run Beaver Dam then on Saturday. And that promotions is going to apply to both tracks. So the hope is that everyone will get 2 free tacos this weekend. We'll see how that pans out.
So at Beaver Dam, sorry, Jay, but at Beaver Dam, it's for your heat or your feature win, correct?
It'll be for either. Yep.
Okay.
Is that good at any Taco Bell or just the Taco Bells in Beaver Dam?
It's the Beaver Dam, Waupun, and Watertown are 3 closest.
Very cool. Now you've had Taco Bell and some of their subsidiaries as sponsors on your car, and that's proven to be a rather successful partnership, not only for you, but for those local businesses. Tell us how that all got started.
At the time, when we started racing Beaver Dam more, not to get off on too much of a tangent, but we started at the fairgrounds. So with this being our 25th year, it's kind of interesting to get a shot to go back because we just haven't had the opportunity. Other times that the mods have been out there or just hasn't worked out for our schedule. But when we came to Beaver Dam, the raceway, we were trying to scout out some new sponsors and things like that. And back at that time, Rex actually put me in touch with Jeff. And as we talked, we realized we had some other friends and associates in common. So it just kind of flourished from there. Started off with just kind of the starter pack, I guess, as it were, with Jeff and his crew there. And it turned out to be really successful. We've done a lot of promotional stuff, and we always try to promote all of our partners whenever we have the opportunity. And it's just kind of been a flourish. I'm happy to say that I feel like that they've been kind of a staple for us lately, and obviously it's really kind of cemented, with the nickname as it grew over the years. So, yeah, it's been a great relationship.
While we're on that, that beautiful number 16 that you guys always present at the racetrack, that's loaded with sponsors. Um, Tell us about who's all supporting you on that race car.
We have a lot of local people, and we've always, really probably driven more towards a lot of the local stuff because we want to support the sport locally as well as our partners. But along with Taco Bell, Beaver Dam Piggly Wiggly, J&B Mechanical or JB Mechanical is a new second season sponsor for us, local HVAC, and recently added some plumbing to their business portfolio. So a local mechanical contractor, Zexer Excavating. He's been around the racetrack for quite a while. Russ Reinwald over at Performance Motorsports. We've been running the slick chassis now for a few years, obviously with a lot of success as we've gotten into that, as well as Speed Needles and Sixth Gear, formerly Hogs and Honeys. Joel's been on board with us and very supportive, and we were doing our part to support them, and they're doing a lot of new things out there at the bar and restaurant. DK Designs of Watertown, which does our wraps and a lot of our artwork stuff, as well as then Sackett Ranch and Horse and Ranch Supply, which are kind of a family tie there, but they're based and have a store over in the Burnett area.
You talked about Russ Reinwald and the slick chassis, and he's had a number of cars win titles out by us. And obviously, you've taken to that car well. You've had a number of different manufacturers you've run over the year. But last year, you really broke out and picked up that track title. And I remember that I believe that was your first track title in the 25 years of racing.
That's correct. The track championship last year was the first time that, I guess to coin a phrase, we really sealed the deal. We had been close quite a bit. We've almost always been in the top five or really close. I've had a couple of seasons where we had finished second and third. But yeah, it was last year was when we finally got it all together, and it really kind of came together for us as a team as well. Admittedly, I almost gave it away. I gave Jimmy a real good shot at taking away from me. And I admittedly was pretty nervous about it going in because Jimmy's a strong competitor and we raced really well together, I think, last year. And it was a good battle. And I think that's, had I not really gotten back and had the support of the crew to really kind of get our focus back in that last night, I think he had a good shot at swiping that one from me.
You talk about your crew. You in all the years I've been involved at Beaver Dam, you always come. I see so many of the same faces. And I know a number of them. I'm not going to be silly and say I don't, but it's really much a family affair for you. Tell us about that.
Yeah, it is. As far as the nucleus of us that I guess have been racing since going all the way back to the stock car days, it's kind of been myself, my brother-in-law, Corey Colts, Dean Burrows, close personal friend. For the most part, he's basically family for us. We've been doing this all for so long. My parents have always been deeply involved, as well as the rest of my family, aunts, uncles, all the usual suspects, I guess, which is really good. And I think it's not just us. I mean, you can look around any of the pit stalls almost, and you can really see that we've got a fair amount of real solid family support in a lot of the teams, whether they're down there actually helping on the car or they're all piling back into the pits last season when everyone was able to come into the pits after the races. But that's a big deal for us. It's really always kind of been a family thing, and we've got a lot of family things that have kind of circled around racing, no pun intended. But yeah, it has been. It's been a family involvement, and I think overall we've kind of all even shared the successes and I guess failures is maybe a strong word. Maybe some of the challenges is a better word. But
so when you hear the news tonight that we are opening the pits back up with social distancing guidelines, it's got to be great news for you and all your race fans.
It definitely changes the atmosphere. I will say that, you know, for as long as we've been doing this, it's just something that everyone's used to. And for all those people on the other end that are up in the stands, it's something that they've always been able to do, you know, go see their favorite driver or walk through the pits and, you know, hear some of the stories of the night. So I'm hoping that getting back to that really kind of puts everybody back at ease a little bit and makes us all a little more comfortable.
So on a given night when Dave Schoenberger shows up at the track, I know one of the first things, and for the casual race fan, they see you guys walking out, looking at the racetrack, and as I tell them when I'm asked, well, what's it look like? I just tell them, oh, it's dirt in a circle, so figure it out. What are you in particular looking for?
A little bit more of it is probably, well, you know, we've had this discussion before. A lot of it is how much water are they putting on today, or, you know, how hot is it? How windy is it? You know, what's going on with the surface? Is the water getting in or going away, or how deep is it? Stuff like that. I mean, I personally, and, you know, it goes back and forth. You know, a lot of people love to have this debate. I prefer I don't want to say a good heavy track, but a track that's got good lines on it. And we get that. It's not that we don't get that. And I think we get it probably more often than most. But a good track that's got some streaks in it, you know, and it's got some dry in it, so that you can mix the lines up a little bit. But that's normally what we're first looking for, is just to see, you know, how things are going, how well it's soaked in, you know, if the track's hard, just to kind of get a little bit of a plan of maybe what the night may hold for us.
Everything being equal, top or the bottom? Top
all day.
And anybody that's seen you race knew that answer before the question left my mouth. When you go to start the races, and then obviously having been one of our more successful competitors, obviously with the point average system, you typically are buried in somewhere in those first 6 rows with a point average. What's your mindset when you're going in? Do you have a plan when you're sitting down there in staging area, or is it just get out there and let it rip and see what happens?
Actually, we just talked about this at the shop last night. I always think I have a plan, you know, and most of the guys kind of have a plan, because when you're sitting there in line up waiting for the feature prior to get done, and you're looking over who's in front of you and where you are, and considering how the track is and all those factors. Yeah, you kind of, when you're racing your home tracks, you kind of formulate a plan in your mind. It normally takes half a lap for that to go out the window, but it's just a matter. You know, we've always looked at, you know, sometimes is the track going to support, you know, making some bold moves, or is the track going to keep you on a more conservative start to really just look at trying to pick some people off by racing where no one else is racing? So yeah, we all think we kind of have a plan when we're going to get started, but more times than not, that plan probably doesn't really come to fruition in all detail.
When this one I know the answer, but you can share it for those that didn't get to. Tell us about the trading paint with the concrete wall story. And I believe that was out at Dodge County.
Yeah,
laid some purple down.
So we ran a lot of purple stock cars back in the day. So on one pretty high and ran the back fender down the wall, I think going into, and you know, did some damage, lost the paint and so on and so forth, and fixed it back up. Well, we had a chrome bumper at the time, and went out the next week and came back in at the end of the night, and I had hit the wall at about the same spot. So apparently I didn't learn my lesson, but we'll call it, I was young and aggressive probably back then. And so we came back in, and the guys were looking the car over, and my same color paint was on the chrome bumper where it hadn't been before. So of course the obvious deduction was that if I hit the wall in the same place, I must have actually rubbed my own paint back onto my car time around.
You've been racing 25 years, you know, and I know we had the opportunity to do that champions video, which I think turned out excellent with that. And you had some great answers in that. Who do you look up to, though, for those that weren't able to see that the most in racing? Your racing mentor, so to speak.
From a mentor's standpoint, I think it's always been my crew. You know, I've got a few other drivers and chassis folks that have helped us along the way when we've gotten, you know, just kind of in a pickle and really didn't really know what their next step was. But as a whole, you know, myself, Dean, and Corey, really kind of all collectively go through and kind of talk about what our struggles are, or they may see that I'm doing something on the track that I don't realize that I'm doing. And sometimes I do some things that may frustrate them in the same step. But it's always just kind of been that feedback. Normally I always used to get yelled at for, they would set the car up to do something specific and the car wouldn't do it, you know, maybe for the first few laps. Well, then I just completely changed what I'm doing to make the car do what I needed to. So the biggest complaint then was that they could never get a read on the car because I wasn't doing what I was told to do. I was doing what worked.
When you touched on a topic there that for the casual race fan may not necessarily understand, but unlike an asphalt track, which doesn't go through the dramatic change, talk about you as a driver and what happens at not only Beaver Dam, but any clay track from the beginning of the night to the end of the night. But not only that, but also from the beginning of the feature to the end of the feature event, which on clay, you're running 20 laps in your feature. Talk about that with the fans.
Boy, we don't know that we have enough time to go through all those scenarios in all reality, but that is, and honestly, that is really a great question, Jerry, because the honest statement of that is that when in most cases the track is always changing. You know, unless we get some of those nights where the track just kind of completely burns off early. And you kind of get what you get when feature rolls around. Early in the season, you know, the track could look like it's going to dry up, and then it could kind of start to come back and get rough as the feature goes on, or you start running a specific line and it burns away, or you may run a line that looks burnt, but after you can put 5 laps in it, you kind of burn through it and you get down to the tack that you want. You know, that's really just 3 of, you know, probably a dozen different scenarios as far as how the track can change, you know, on just those 20 laps. But you know, and you pay attention to how the track is changing in the races before you, and you can. But the flip side of that is that a lot of times you think the track is going to do something based on who's ahead of you or the feature that's ahead of you, or that you don't think they're really going to change the track. And then you roll out on there and you realize that you're probably about 2 steps off of your setup from where you thought you were going to be. And that's the hand you're dealt. So I think that's the biggest thing about the dirt surface, you know, to explain it to anybody, is that you take a good shot at getting it right. You're probably within 90% most times if you know your track, but every once in a while you're at 50.
And that makes for a long, challenging feature event.
It can.
And one of the things when I talk to drivers and in a given feature, compared to some of the other forms of racing, your features are 20 laps. One of the things they always tell me, and you can expand upon it, in those 20 laps, they'll tell me they get 10 good ones, 5 that are really good, and 5 where they just made some bonehead mistakes. And it's the feature winner is the guy who overcomes those 5 ugly ones.
Yeah, more than likely. I've been told that I don't get to 10 some nights, but and it all depends on where I finish. But it is true. I mean, you know, and there's all those things that the race throws at you. I mean, you're not just out there making time laps. You got someone else that's trying to race you, or you're catching up on traffic, or the track is changing. Sometimes you catch it in time, sometimes you don't. So yeah, that's actually probably pretty fair. It's hard to go out on dirt and say you've ran a perfect race, because you're going to make those 3 to 5 laps of, okay, I could have done that better, or maybe I went in too hard, maybe I went in too soft, but that's fair. I mean, that's a good summation.
Obviously Dave Schoenberger, racer. Tell me about Dave Schoenberger, the other 6 days a week, 5 days a week, newlywed, so to speak, yet?
So to speak.
And is the honeymoon is still happening?
Oh, sure. She might be watching downstairs, so I got to say that. But it's still busy. You know, we are we're a combined family, or whatever the term for it is nowadays. So we've got a college, and we graduated 2 seniors this year, and I got a middle schooler and a high schooler yet. So it doesn't slow down, even with the COVID things and everything that came up here with the end of the school year. We did definitely run into some challenges, not just us. I mean, any family with kids and trying to navigate the school system. But it's been busy. My other 6 days of the week, between other things that we try to do and keep up with everyone else's events and maintain a household and respond to a few fire calls once in a while. It's not often very slow.
You do something that I think is very cool, and goes under the heading of underappreciated, and really not enough people know that you reach out and do this, is a fundraiser for some charity groups. Tell us about that.
Yeah, we had started a few years ago. We started the Schoenberger Racing 9-pin tap bowling tournament. Originally that was founded in a standpoint of just something to get everybody together in the winter, kind of halfway through the winter kind of thing. And as we kind of got a little more involved with the Nation of Patriots and that group, and Brad Weber and the Fletchers and some other folks locally, I had really put a lot of time and effort behind that cause as well. Bill Scheer being the founder of that organization. Through my motorcycling and things like that, that's really what kind of got us interested in it. So we were looking for a way to kind of give back to that as well. And so my bowling tournament, or bowling get together, kind of started to. So last year was probably the first year that we really got the Nation of Patriots on board as a participant per se. So we took that first step to really make it something bigger. And I think it was a good first step. I think there's a lot of potential for us to continue, for it to grow. But for those of you that don't follow, the Nation of Patriots does have a Facebook page. They are currently in a state of their tour where I think they're starting to be able to physically hand the flag from group to group. They were they started off in a virtual tour of sorts, so that they could kind of still keep it on schedule in hopes that eventually things would kind of come back around and it would get back to normal, I guess, as it were. I think if I heard right, I haven't followed up on it yet this week, but I think they're finally starting to make that step where they're physically going to start handing the flag off at each of their locations. And on my calendar here in front of me, and since I'm on my phone, I can't see it, but I believe it's the 25th of July weekend when we're off at Beaver Dam, well, the modifieds, I believe is when the flag comes through Beaver Dam. So they'll have some other local things going on. You know, like I said, everyone's kind of tiptoeing the COVID line right now, but hopefully we'll be able to get some of that back together. But yeah, the fundraising part of that, that's kind of how we got involved with them, and that's kind of where the tournament started to go.
Very cool. And if you get that information to Chris, I'm sure she'll be able to get some extra pub for that out to you. So it's one of those causes.
She even came out
support.
and last year. She was very helpful and helped us to get the word out.
Yep, I always try to post the invite out on Facebook, and then this last year they had a lot of really cool auction items or raffle items. A lot of stuff. So it was a really fun time.
And if anybody has or wants to donate a raffle item, reach out to Dave at the track or get it to Chris, and I'm sure that we'll make sure we get it to the right spot.
Yes.
Chris, we got any Facebook questions coming in for Dave?
Well, you kind of touched on firefighting, and I have Mike Held asking if he could borrow the American flag that you have, your firefighter American flag, for the anthem, because he gets to do the anthem this week. I'm guessing you both share the whole firefighter thing in your spare time?
Yeah, it's available. That flag is always in our trailer. So if you'd like to carry that one, I won't have a problem with that.
Super. There isn't really any other questions. In 25 years of racing, though, you've probably gone to quite a few tracks. Do you have a favorite track to always run it?
You know, and that's oddly enough, it was funny because I went back and listened to Jeff last week, and we were rattling off a lot of tracks. I'm like, well, I'm really behind because I have been pretty local. You know, we've really probably only ventured out to maybe 5 or 6 tracks throughout our career, even because we've always just kind of stayed local. We've always liked to go to Deer Creek, and it's always just been a good show. Normally it was with the USMTS, so that's always kind of a hard nut to crack, as it were, because that's a lot of high-end competitors when we would go up there. But that's always been a fun place to run. It took me a little while to warm up to Beaver Dam when we first left the fairgrounds, to be honest, just because it was so much smaller. But I think the smaller tracks are really what have the more exciting racing for the fans, just because everything's a little more together. But yeah, I guess I would, always saying Beaver Dam is my home track is really probably, my first pick. Deer Creek's a really close second. If we race there more often and we're a little more successful there, that might be a little different decision. But yeah, we never really had an opportunity to get out too much. We did Oshkosh when they were running, and we've been up to Seymour, and we've been up to 141, really only a few times. But I have a little time yet. Hopefully we'll try and start to venture out here before the trailer gets parked.
Jerry, Ryan Flanagan is asking for a friend, of course, if you need an assistant.
for those that don't know, Ryan Flanagan is the flagman at Slinger Super Speedway. Tell Ryan I'll be calling him after the show.
There you go, Ryan. There aren't any other questions on here. Oh, and
Any
I had one. and I
pertinent
forgot.
question that you came up with?
I had one and now I forgot it. Oh, okay. Here's Adam Hintz said, how did you get into racing and what was your first division?
On dirt, it would have been street stock at the fairgrounds. I had ice raced and did some things to that. And if you really want to go to the first automotive related thing, it would have been demo derbies at the fairground. And that was when I think I started that when I was 16. I think it was my first demo derby. But yeah, that was kind of where we started. We started in stock cars and we just eventually made our way all the way through. We ran stock car, we ran IMCA stock. Sport mod didn't really exist back at that time, so then we jumped to modifieds and we had a brief stint in a late model. I wish would have lasted a little longer, but then it brought us back to modifieds. So I have a few on my bucket list I'd like to at least try. It might be a case of where I might have to go rent one to do it, but I still have a sprint car on my list. I really like the wingless sprints. I just wish that they didn't have crates. And I still have a legend on my checklist. Other than a Grand National, I've pretty much raced everything that we've run locally in one way, shape, or form. A few years back, the Berkoviches gave me an opportunity to race their sport mod, which was a lot of fun. But yeah, I've got a few on my list yet that I'd still like to check off.
By the number 16. Oh, what, Derry?
As you come through the modifieds, you've seen the evolution from the stock 4-link and the leaf spring car to the 3-link to the more advanced suspension setups that you guys are running now. How challenging is it to think what you did when you started modifieds to what you guys are doing now, and how much technology is involved in the rear suspension on those cars?
Yeah. Had you told me that this was where we were headed, when we were running leaf springs and mono leafs and coilovers and all that stuff back in the day, I had thought you were probably from Mars. But yeah, with the things that you can do now with spring rates and with shock valve timing and rates, yeah, it does get a lot more complicated, and it helps that we work with a lot of people that are really in the know on how that all works out and what the new things are that are kind of coming down the pipe. Back at that time, I was like, well, it's just a shock. I just got to slow the spring down, right? Well, you try to, if I had gone today and gone back 25 years to try and explain that to myself 25 years ago, I'd have probably thought I was nuts. But yeah, it's a huge deal. There's definitely a lot more technology, and I know that you get into the dirt late model levels and a lot of these guys that are really traveling the United States and racing everywhere. I mean, they're on the top of their game. The technology is definitely out there.
What else you got, Chris?
Okay. So Jim Tremblay asked why the number 16.
Actually, it's a few reasons. The 16th was my birth date in August.
Well, it still is technically.
For anybody keeping score, I'll be 49 this August. And I was kind of 16. I was 16 when I started. My sister's birthday is on a 16th. And just by chance, my youngest daughter, her birthday is also on a 16th. So just kind of all rolled together.
Okay. So when you get the lineups, in the heats or the features? Who's that one driver that might end up next to you and you just go, oh no, I don't want to race against him right there. Like biggest competitor.
Depends on the night. Normally it's more of a, okay, I necessarily not who may necessarily maybe makes you cringy. But it's, who the competition is in your heat, I guess. Or
Second time caller.
Yeah, second caller. Huh, okay. I don't know. That's all that's on here so far. That's anybody's answer or asked. Well, James
All right,
Fletcher asked if you're running the half mile. He tuned in a little late, so.
been late to the party.
Yes, he
Hey,
is
if
running
you,
the half mile.
If you win, James, you can donate your tacos to Wade because you weren't paying attention early.
I was thinking about it before. I always throw Brandon Schmidt under the bus about not being at check-in, always sending somebody else to check in. I don't think I have ever seen you at driver check-in because Sandy always does it.
Well, there is that.
Yes.
But I'm still on time.
Oh, well, Sandy wants to know what's the most fun race you've ever ran?
The one that sticks out in my mind, I guess, the most, and it was actually one of the, it maybe goes on the list of races you wish you could have had back to. Well, I wish I could remember what year it was too. But Jeremy Christians and I were racing each other basically door to door through an entire feature. And I think we had lapped almost up to the 6th or 5th place car. And I had the lead and went into, I think it was turn 1 on the brakes, and we must have skipped a rut and it actually shattered my right front rotor. And I had to pull off. So I think if I remember correctly, I don't think he actually even went on to win the race because it was like with 3 laps to go. And I think someone got him on the restart. But yeah, that was one of those races where we were completely hauling through the entire field and we swapped back, I think, quite a bit in that race. That's one that kind of always sticks out.
We'll have to see if we can get Jeremy Christians on and get his side on that. See if he remembers that night.
Yeah, he races way more, so he may not remember.
No. All right, Chris.
That's probably a race way down the list of Jeremy's accomplishments.
All right. Well, thanks again for joining us.
Sure. Thanks for calling.
Good luck tomorrow night at Dodge, and we'll see you. Well, I won't see you until probably after the races, but we'll see you Saturday.
All right.
Thank you, Dave.
Thank you.
Saturday.
Bye.